The languages of the world have been the primary means of communication between people since time immemorial. Although they are recognized as symbol of diplomacy and mutual understanding, they are also a source of division, misunderstanding, and conflict. To deal with this issue, some scholars started working on a number of artificial languages at the beginning of the 19th century. These languages, also known as artificial auxiliary languages, were intended to eliminate those cultural barriers that divided countries and individuals, creating a means of communication that was neutral, with no flag and easy to learn. With the passage of time and technological advancement, the artificial languages, intended to be actively used as universal languages up until then, also began to be employed for artistic purposes, in novels, TV series and movies, to immerse the general public in the narrated story, but also to better define the fantasy culture created by the writers and directors. The search for a universal language began in 1827 with the composer François Sudre. His goal was to create a language that all people could learn regardless of the mother tongue. The result was Sol, an artificial auxiliary language based on musical notes. Subsequently, other languages took over, such as Volapük, created by Catholic priest Johann Martin Schleyer, the first experiment with moderate success, and later succeeded by Esperanto, which still holds the record as the most widely spoken artificial auxiliary language in the world. Due to the Second World War and the repression by the fascist and Nazist parties, the idea of a language that could lead to international dialogue was shelved for several decades and only resumed after the end of the conflict. But the experimentation did not stop. Thanks to his long academic experience and great passion for ancient languages, the writer and linguist J.R.R. Tolkien forged a language for his most important and famous writing, The Lord of the Rings, namely Elvish. Also referred as Kenyan in the Tolkien universe, Elvish is the first attempt at an artificial artistic language created for the purpose of characterizing Tolkien's Elvish people. Most artificial artistic languages do not have an official grammar, and the elaboration of the grammar is left to a group of fans of the various novels or TV series. An example of this is Vulcan, the language of the people of the same name, in the original Star Trek series, which first appeared in 1967, but was not elaborated in more detail for a decade, and most of the grammatical rules and syntactic structure are only known through careful analysis of the original TV series. A similar situation was that of Klingon, also from the Star Trek universe, which was however later extended by an official grammar made by the creator of the language. This allowed Klingon to have a large number of speakers who continue to keep the language alive decades later by using it in conventions and creating institutions such as the Klingon Language Institute, which offers Klingon courses and lessons. More recent examples of artistic languages, however, take a different approach, as in the case of science fiction movies Avatar in 2009 and Arrival in 2016. The Na'vi in Avatar and Heptapod B in Arrival are two languages at opposite ends of the spectrum. The former is only oral and is not written, the latter it is only written with semigraphic characters and is unpronounceable. These are stylistic choices intended to reinforce the fundamental characteristic of the alien people from which they originate. While artificial languages were initially created mainly for the purpose of being used in international communication, today they are mostly used in entertainment. The problems artificial languages face are linked to their very nature. Languages represent people, their culture, customs, their everyday life, and their way of seeing the world. Aiming at linguistic neutrality, these languages do not possess a culture of origin, but only take inspiration from existing natural languages. This is to make languages easier to learn, as in reality there are no difficult languages, only ones that are more distant from our own. And it is precisely for this reason that there is no point of equal distance between all languages that, for better or for worse, are interconnected. While the ultimate goal of a universal language is difficult to achieve, in artistic languages one can find a kind of redemption, instilling the passion for communication and understanding through entertainment, and rekindling people's desire to discover and learn.